Welcome to the 2.0 Grandma Podcast, a space created by a grandma for grandmas and all about grandmas. Our mission is clear: to empower and support grandmas as they redefine, realign, and redesign their lives.
I tell you, CJ, I'm so excited to meet you. When I saw your website and your stuff, I'm like, you know what? This is going to be a lot of fun.
I can guarantee that.
Yes.
We will
So
have fun.
how did you come up with this name? I love it. I love it.
I really don't remember. I don't remember if somebody gave it to me or what. I had written a book in 2017 called The Badass Girl's Guide: Uncommon Strategies to Out with Predators for girls 13 on up into women about how to avoid sexual assault.
Oh,
And then
wow.
when I wrote Badass Parenting and Heroic Parenting,
Uh-huh.
that's when I got the Badass Grandma moniker.
Ah, wow.
And
Wow.
how'd you come up with 2.0 Grandma?
Well, so what I did, people kept saying to me, well, you don't look like a grandma. You don't
Don't.
act like a grandma, right? And I said, so I kept questioning, well, what does a grandma look like and act like? And I know what society says grandmas look like and act like,
Yeah.
right? I
Nope.
already know that. But I asked them, I said, what am I supposed to act like, right? And I said, oh, yeah, well, today's grandma, we're different. I said, we're the 2.0 version of ourselves. I said, you know how telephones, they have remember, like we're on the Apple phone now. So I think it's like the 15 version of it.
Yeah.
And so I said, yeah, I'm the 2.0 version. And so it was just, and I said, now really, what does that mean? Because somebody asked, well, what does that really mean? And I said, well, when we talk about electronics, it's like an advanced version of something, right? So I like to think that grandmas now, most grandmas are an advanced version of themselves because they are the 2.0 version. Each version, we're going to get a little better. And so my friends tease me because if I ever say I'm tired or something, they tell me, wait a minute, you're the 2.0 grandma. You cannot be tired. I'm like, now wait, I'm still human, okay?
And how many grandkids do you have?
I have 7.
Oh,
What about you?
wow. From what age to what age?
Oh my God. The youngest is 2. The oldest just turned 22.
Oh my gosh. Do you live nearby any of them?
I do. I do. I live near all of them except one. The 2-year-old is in Washington, D.C.
Oh, that's not too terribly far though.
He was here this week, so that was so much fun.
Yeah.
What about you? Tell me about your grandkids.
They're 11 miles from me, and I have
Oh,
a 6-year-old who's going to be 7 in June, and twins, boy-girl twins that just turned 9 last week.
oh wow. So you
Oh,
have young
sweetest
grandkids.
stage. Yeah, my son waited until he was in his 30s to have kids. So, because I had him when I was 22, but he waited till he was 31.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I waited until I was a little bit older to have my kids. I went to college, did all that stuff first. And then my son and his wife, the my oldest son, they had their first child when they were in college. So they were like their second or third year.
Wow,
Yeah. And
that's
at
hard.
first I was like, now wait a minute. I'm not gonna be called grandma. I'm gonna be called grand diva or something like that. Well, what baby do you know that says grand diva?
So what do they call you?
Grandma.
I ended up being Grammy. I was grandma for years, and suddenly they changed it to Grammy. So as long as it's
Ah,
not Granny, I'm okay.
right. Right. Because society does have this vision of what grandmas are. And when I did my website, right, and the very first website, first version of it, I had the most challenging time finding, what I call 2.0 grandmas. They were not sexy, they were not fly, they were all like bent over, they were all, boobs from here, hanging down and all that stuff, right? So I was like, wow, there is definitely a lot to be desired when we're talking about grandmas and how the images that we portray them
Are
in.
perceived. I remember my grandparents being the age I am now. I'm 60. I just turned 63 last week, and
Well, happy
they were ancient. And when you look at the older movies, like
birthday.
have you ever watched It's a Wonderful Life? Do you
Yes.
remember Uncle Clarence? Not Clarence, Uncle, not Clarence, but
Somebody,
the uncle who worked at the bank. He
yes.
was 54 years old when that was filmed.
Well, he looked
He
like
looked like he was
80,
in his
didn't
70s.
he? Right. And he forgot to take the money to the bank, didn't he? Or something like that.
Yes.
Messed up everything.
But you're right.
Oh,
Women looked a lot older in the past, but we're
yes,
starting
yes,
to jazz it up now.
yes, yes, we are. We are. I always say, honey, we are outside. We are outside. And that means something different these days
Mhm.
because of COVID. It's like, okay, now I'm taking my life back. I'm doing things that I want to do
Mhm.
versus I'm not doing what society says I need to do. Because if we were, so that means that we would not be badass grandmas. We would just be at home. We would be waiting on people to bring us the kids to babysit them, right? But today's grandma, the badasses and the 2.0s, we outside, we are doing our own thing.
Yep.
We even going to day parties, we're going to night parties, we're doing all kinds of things, right? And we're doing it in stilettos if we want to.
Yeah,
I
we
remember
are.
wearing support hose and those ugly, ugly shoes. What were those shoes called?
Orthopedic shoes.
Orthopedic shoes. We're
I,
not
my,
doing those. We're not doing those, right? So again, it's a totally different version of grandmas, right? You see what I mean? Yeah, not doing those. And I still have some. They're not stilettos, but they're with the little heel, with the heel like this, like the little skinny heels.
Mhm.
And sometimes I wear those. So I teach online, right? And so my husband will say to me sometimes, "Well, where are you going?" And I said, "I'm not going anywhere, but I'm going in here to the computer." He said, "So why are you all dressed up?" Because that's what I want to be.
What do you teach?
I teach early childhood to college students.
Oh, that
Yes,
is amazing. And which
yeah,
university, which college do you
at
teach?
Montgomery College in Maryland.
Maryland. So are your
Hmm.
classes virtual? All virtual?
All of them are virtual. Yep, yep, yep. Some I have to actually, we call them remote structured, which means I have to be online with the students, just like I'm online with you. And then
Mhm.
some are just only distance. I put up the content and then they go in and, have assignments to do and everything. Yeah. So tell me
Right.
about your program. So you said when I did my research, no, that the information you sent me, you said that you were a director of an advocacy center. I
Yes,
thought that was really fascinating.
yes. After while I was in graduate school, I got a degree in human violence, master's degree in human violence, which is an interdisciplinary criminology sociology degree, because I was trying to understand how people could do the terrible things they do to each other. And
Yeah.
while I was in grad school, I was living in Norfolk, and I
Uh-huh.
got a job at the Child Advocacy Center in Elizabeth City, North Carolina. This
Oh,
was immediately after the Little Rascals scandal. Do you remember that?
no.
The
Uh-uh.
daycare where all the children had been molested at the daycare center
And where was that?
in it was in Dare County,
In Elizabeth City. Wow.
Edenton. It was in Edenton. And I was the Child Advocacy Center was in Elizabeth City, which is where I moved to. And I took over right after, I mean, the community, the 7 counties that were in that, in the community were just exhausted from the trial, which lasted forever.
Hmm.
And there was no funding for the organization, for the Child Advocacy Center. I went for long periods without getting paid because they hired me after the grant period was over. So I wasn't able to get grant money to pay for myself to be there until the next year.
Hmm.
It was a tough row to hoe, but I ended up doubling the staff and moving us to a larger facility. And so the gratifying thing about running the Child Advocacy Center was that the children would come in traumatized and and afraid and confused, and after getting the therapy they needed and being told that it wasn't their fault, they would,
Hmm.
in 6 months they were different kids.
Wow. Wow.
So
Amazing.
Frederick Douglass said it's easier to repair. I'm going to paraphrase here. It's easier to build strong children than to repair broken adults, and that's
Yes.
very true because I'm
Yes.
still in therapy 34 years after I started dealing with my child abuse issues. And, if I'd been a child and there had been any kind of intervention, I wouldn't have had to go through all that.
Hmm. Yeah, I know. And there's a lot of us that live through those kind of traumatic experiences that never had anyone, we never had anybody to talk to about it. We never talked to anybody about it because, like you said, we thought it was our fault. And so we didn't share it. And we were afraid that somebody else was going to think it was our fault as well. So I understand. I get it. I've been victimized myself. So I get it. I understand exactly what that means. And it's just so sad that children have to go through that. And I know the impact that it had on me was that I never let my children stay with anybody. I was afraid to do that.
Well,
Or
that's very wise
but I
because,
never let them stay with anybody. I don't
yeah,
care. cousins. Nope, nope, nope,
Mhm.
nope. What?
Well, a child is actually more likely to be molested by an older child than by a parent.
And then, see, that's the other thing.
Hmm.
That is the other thing. I found out recently from one of my nephews what happened to him. And this is a grown man now, and he's still dealing with that. And I said to him, I want you to get some help. I want you to talk to somebody about this, somebody who's trained in what you need to do and how you process this. I can't tell you. And I told him, I said, now I know you don't know this about me, but the same thing happened to me. I never told you that, but the same thing happened to me. Not from that person, of course, but a different person,
Hmm.
family person. I said, so I understand what you've been through. I said, but what I want you to do, because you seem to be still having a tough time, I
Yeah.
want you to talk to somebody about it, other than me. Talk to somebody who's a professional about these things. Because I
Did
think
he?
that's what every child, I don't know. This was just last
Oh,
weekend.
wow. That's the only way to break the generational cycle of violence is to get the help and healing for yourself so
Mm-hmm,
that you can then stop it in your generation and future generations.
mm-hmm. So it's really sad, and unfortunately, we think that as we evolve as people, that things will change, but unfortunately, in many cases, they stay the same.
Yeah, and a lot of
So,
people think that child abuse is an intractable problem, sex trafficking and sexual molestation, assault, and online dangers and things like that. And I push back against that. I mean, it's human. Unfortunately, there's evil humans out there. There are
oh,
bad people out there who will do this stuff. But there's children and adults have so much more power than they realize to stop it, to
mm,
avoid it. Because parents who are educated about what the dangers are
mhm,
and are educated about how to teach their children how to avoid predators and bullies and handle themselves in dangerous encounters are so much more likely to be safe and not be targeted in the first place because confidence is the number one predator repellent.
mm,
And a confident kid, a child who feels confident and a parent who feels confident in their child that they know how to handle their business,
mhm,
is less likely to be targeted by a predator in the first place.
mm.
So that's what I am all about. That's why I'm a badass grandma, because I teach parents how to empower their kids to avoid bullies and predators and escape dangerous situations. I teach them everything from, again, what the dangers are, how to talk to your child at their age and maturity level, and how to fight like a rabid Tasmanian devil if you're in a situation you need to get out of. And
And
that's
do you
basically
do that
going bonkers on their butt.
and
You
you do
bite.
that for parents of preschool children as well?
I absolutely would love for parents of preschool children to learn this. So I'm working right now, in addition to the books I've written, I'm working now on an online parent course for parents that teach them all
Nice.
of this. And then I'm going to follow that up with a course for kids because parents tell me their number one challenge is they don't know what to say to their kids or how to say it.
Right.
So
Right.
I'm going to say it for them.
Mm.
And Dr. Marcher, I may be coming to you for help when I get to the section on how to talk to the younger kids.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. And I was thinking that I would love for you to talk to my students. I teach a
Mhm.
class, or at least do a video or something, or maybe you already have something out there that I can embed into one of my course learning modules. So what I do is I set everything up by weekly modules, and then I
Mhm.
have, like, I'm doing this course. It's called Social Emotional Development for Young Children. And of
Mhm.
course, it's about observing children in the classroom. It's about teaching them how to be self-aware, and
Mhm.
about social emotional learning. And so that would be, I can see that ideally fitting into one of those units or modules for students, just so they can hear, most of the stuff comes from, what we find online, videos and that sort of thing. But actually talking to someone, and maybe having an opportunity for them to even ask you questions.
I would love to do that.
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. Please do me a favor and give me your phone number right now while I'm thinking about it, so I don't
Everybody put
forget.
it in the chat, and I need to get your address so I can send you a copy of my book, and I have a little gift for you when we
Perfect,
wrap
perfect.
up. Hang on, chat. Okay, 919.
Put mine there as well.
Oops. It would help if I gave you the right number. So that's it. Got it.
Okay, got it. 919-606-9376. Yes, perfect. Yeah, I know students would really benefit from hearing that. And I know, I was thinking about my own grandchildren and especially my 2-year-old. I have a teenager. Well, she's not a teenager. She'll be 12 on her birthday in July. Granddaughter, and I
Hmm.
want to sure, because these are things that I worry about as a parent, a grandparent, based on my own experiences, right?
Yeah.
And I know I used to work with my grandma. She used to have this place in South Carolina, Atlantic Beach, and she had like it was, today I guess we might call it a bed and breakfast, where people would stay over and she would cook the food and da 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 da. So I used to work when I was about 12. I worked behind the counter selling like little goodies, little cookies, ice cream, candy, stuff like that, in the place. And these men would always hit on me because I had little buds coming in, men,
Yeah.
and I always felt really intimidated. And I would tell her, she said, "Well, if they do, I'm going to shoot them." Back in the day, women, they were really tough because they had to be, right? And so she said, "Oh, just tell me which one. And if anyone says anything to you, I will shoot them." But I didn't want anybody to get shot. So,
That's
but
what you tell parents. If your child discloses something, don't say, I'm going to kill him, because your child
right,
will clam up and that's it. You won't get anything else out of them.
right. So, so I'm like, oh God, do I say anything? Do I not say anything? But, I can remember the men just saying little inappropriate, not little, but inappropriate things to me
Hmm.
because the age that I was. And,
Hmm.
men, they see girls and they see little boobs and they lose their minds,
They do lose their mind.
Yes. And so it was so inappropriate. And I think about some of those things, but yeah. And I don't want my granddaughters to have to experience that. I don't even want people even talking to them inappropriately. So yes, I want to hear, what you have to say and get one of your books for adolescents and give it to my son. And then maybe even, we talk about it with her because they come over every week,
Mhm.
for a couple of hours or so. And I really want to make sure that she's schooled. And she said to me the other day, she said, "Oh, she said, let's go for a walk, Grandma." So I said, "Okay." So we actually walked down the street. And then she said, "Yeah, me and my girlfriend, we walk sometimes. And sometimes we walk at night." I said, "Why are you walking at night?" That's kind of dangerous. She said, "Well, no, I'm fine." So she seems very, very confident, but I don't like it, right? I don't like it.
Should be able to take a walk at 4 o'clock in the morning, butt naked, and not have anything happen to her. Unfortunately, that's not the world we live in.
But that's not the world that
Yes.
we live in. Exactly. So I
Mhm.
said to her, "You got to be really careful with that." I said, "Does your dad know that?" I said, "Because, she doesn't live with her dad. She lives with her mom." And so, she says, "I don't know if he knows that, but it's no big deal." I'm like, "Yes, it is a big deal." I didn't want to frighten her,
Mhm.
right? But I
Yeah.
do want her to be aware. She said, "Oh, well, I'm not by myself." It doesn't matter. If 3 men come around and there's two of you, come
Mhm.
on, do the math.
Yep.
So those kind of things are really important. I did not mean to bring you down, but I just want.
No, no, this does not bring me down at all. This stuff energizes me because it's like this is the real stuff.
Yeah.
And like I was saying, there's more kids have more power and know more about what's going on in the world than parents think they do.
Hmm.
It's like
Hmm.
the Harry Potter world. Harry Potter did not pull any punches. It got dark and there was evil and all this other stuff. Kids know that evil exists. I mean, older kids know.
Hmm.
And um, there are ways to prepare your child to deal with potential dangers without scaring them to death.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
when parents do that, they're giving them the biggest gift they possibly can, the gift of confidence, the gift of self-assurance, the gift of self-esteem, and the gift of not of being less likely again to be a target of predators.
Hmm. Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
I'm so committed to this. This is all I think about, all I do. I am just
Yeah, I know. It's a crazy world that we live in. I'm putting my address in because I forgot to do that.
okay. Thank
But
you.
it's a crazy world that we live in these days, I tell you.
It's interesting too, because the world, the one-on-one world, one-on-one crime, it's actually safer than when you and I were children. The crime rate is down to below where you and when we were kids in the 60s.
Hmm.
But it's online. Online dangers is where crime is going up in a seriously
Yes.
bad way.
Yes. Yes.
And it scares me, the
It does.
dangers are horrifying. I mean,
Yes. Yes.
the potential is just out there and it's going. Are we recording for the show now?
Yes. Yes. We are.
Awesome,
Yes.
guys.
Yeah. I
In
probably
addition
did
to
it a
the
long time
sextortion and the sexting and
ago.
stuff like that, there are people out there, bad actors, who are forcing kids to perform horrible acts.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because they don't just get off on it. They also are selling these images, and people stream live these images of these kids doing these things. So it's a very serious
Yeah,
situation out there. But
yeah.
the childhood education, to kind of lift the conversation here above the danger stuff, that you're teaching these students is so important. And the world is not the same as when you and I were kids.
No, it's not. No, it's
They
not.
are they are living in a world that is moving so much faster than it was. So I would love to take your course myself, because I see my grandchildren and the pace everything moves at, and I can barely keep up with them.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
amazing.
Yeah. And our folks are working with very young children, right? Some are working with infants and toddlers. Some are working with preschoolers up to age 8.
Mhm.
So the elementary years as well. And those are critical years. They're critical
Yes, they
years
are.
about self-concept, self-esteem, self-confidence, having that self, and we have to instill that in them, and we have to figure out how to do it and do it earlier,
Mhm.
because once you get yourself in those kinds of situation and you don't know what to do, then you're pretty much screwed, unfortunately, which is a bad choice of words in that instance, but it's really not a good feeling. But if you know what to do, like you said, and have the confidence and are able to say no and mean it. Like I heard
Yes.
my little
Yeah.
grandson say, he says no with authority. And I said to my husband, wow, did you hear how he said that with authority? That is huge for a 2-year-old to say the
Yes.
word no and mean it. And he meant it. You could
Yeah.
tell by the look on his face, by the authority in his voice when he said it. I'm like, wow. I would have never said no to my grandma at 2.
And
Right?
then we raise our children. I don't want to use the word beat, but we kind of beat it out of them. We kind of talk them
Yes,
out of standing up for themselves as they get older, to make nice and make everyone around them feel comfortable. And
yes, yeah.
I remember we raised my oldest granddaughter. We talked a lot about body autonomy and her body, her choice kind of thing. And she was like 5 years old, and it was like bedtime. She goes, "I'm not going to bed." And her mom was like, "You are going to bed." And she says, "It's my body, it's my choice, and I don't want to go."
You like, oh, right.
Like, it doesn't always
Not
work
in
that way,
that instance, right?
but good idea.
But good idea, right? She's using it just not the right context, right?
Yes. Yes.
That's funny. But again, and they don't know, but it's okay. So this few minutes ago, earlier today, actually, my daughter and I were on the phone. We do FaceTime, of course, with my grandson. And so he said, "Oh, mommy, I love you." And he was hugging him. I said, "That's my mommy." He said, "No, that's my mommy." So we went back and forth with that, right? That's my mommy. No, that's my mommy. I want your mommy. No, that's my mommy. He says, "You have G daddy." In other words, leave my mom alone. You already got somebody. It was so funny. I was like, this little boy is so bright to be able to say that to me. You don't need my mommy. This is my mommy. You got G daddy. In other words, you got your husband over there. Leave my mom. I was like, wow. It's amazing how much children understand that
Mm.
we don't always give them credit for. That's what I try to tell my students. These children these days are so much more advanced intellectually
Mm.
than I think that we were when we were at their age. And I think it's how we were raised. We were raised to go sit down, be quiet, to be seen and not heard.
I heard. And they would
But
kick us out in the morning, come back when the street light
right,
comes on. And so we weren't paying attention to the adult world. And kids today are in the house so much,
right.
it's
And that,
unavoidable.
yes, and but they have to know what's going on around. They have to be aware. And I don't think that I was. I never really, thought about those kinds of things. I remember being I lived in New York when I was in the seventh grade. And I remember these boys, what do they call it now? I guess it would be like carjacking, but it wasn't in a car. Where I'm just walking down the street, just, I'm sixth
Hugging.
grade, what is that, 11 or 12,
Mhm.
skipping back to school. And we had a fundraiser at school. And so I had my money in the bag and my money was, you know, and the boys came over and took my money. They robbed me. They took my money and then pushed me down and so forth. But I was not aware of what was around me. First, I
Mhm.
shouldn't have been on that deserted street. That was number one, right? Number two, I should not have been jingling my money, right? And number three, I probably should have just been walking with confidence and walking down the street like I own the street instead of, happy and. skipping and doing everything but flipping, doing somersaults, right? I was doing everything but that. And so, but it taught me a very valuable lesson. You have to be aware of your surroundings,
Situational
right?
awareness is really important. And I have to be honest, I probably have the worst situational awareness of anybody on the planet. My world is my focus on things is very tight. And my husband passed away 10 years ago, but he once shaved his beard. It took me a week to finally he sat me down. He says, "What is different about this picture?"
Oh my God,
I was
CJ.
like, let me think. I suffer from a lack of situational awareness, and that's something I teach in my book about, how to teach your kid about situational awareness, because that's a big part of avoiding danger in the first place, is scouting out, okay, there's 3 sketchy looking people over there. I'm going to walk on the other side of the street, and they may still follow you. I mean, there's no way to stop all crime for all time. There are bad actors who are going to do their thing,
Mm-hmm.
but there's a lot that can be done to minimize the risk.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's exactly right. And if if you are aware, when you look around, that thing about the mirrors, not the mirrors, but the in the cars now where
Blind
they
spot mirror thing.
look before you back up or whatever, and you have the
Huh?
camera there on the back so it can show you what's there, but it still tells you to look, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're like tunnel vision and don't look behind us or to the side of us and just look at the camera. We're gonna miss something that comes out of nowhere.
Yep.
And many times things come out of nowhere. And that's what happened with those boys. They came out of nowhere because I didn't, I was like, just having a good time walking back to school, skipping and, smiling and
It's
all
a
that.
terrifying experience for you.
It was. It really was. And then
And were these boys or were they men?
they were boys. They were boys. And I don't know. I mean, I can't, I would say they're probably teenage boys, teen boys, right? Thank God they didn't rape me.
Yeah. I was just thinking, thank God it wasn't worse.
Right. Thank
They
God
were
they
up to the
didn't
money.
rape me.
Yeah.
But it was, yeah, I think they just wanted the money because they heard the money jingling. And I didn't have sense enough to know not to jingle your money. And this was New York. I should have known better.
You
Or
were
somebody taught
11.
me better. Somebody should have
You
taught
were
me
a
better.
baby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I didn't know. I had no idea. It was just, being a child, what children do. And they skip and they jump and they love life, because they think the world is a beautiful place. Now, that did not change my mindset, forever and ever that, oh, the world is a dark place. No, I didn't go there. But it did make me more aware of my surroundings. When I got back to school, and I went to a Catholic school, and I got back to the school, and the nuns were like, "Oh my God, what happened?" And I was crying and everything because I was really upset. And they said, "Well, what happened?" And I told them what happened, and then so of course then we talked about it and that sort of thing. They were really good. They were very supportive around that, which was really good. But little did I know at that time there was a lot of other stuff going on, like with the priests were molesting the boys. I didn't even know that. So who
Yeah.
knows? Yeah, I mean, again, it's just so much going on in this world that we don't know about. Yeah.
Yeah, it's easy to go, as studying human violence in graduate school was a very dark
I didn't
time.
know
I mean,
that was a
I
such a
focus on a lot of dark topics, and the only thing that
yeah.
keeps me going, that keeps me positive, is like the Mr. Rogers quotes. Every time he would see something negative on the TV when he was a kid, his mom would say, "Look for the helpers, look for the people helping." For
Mm,
every rotten person out there, for every evil person out there, there are thousands of people. I have to remind myself of this all the time. Thousands of people who are good, decent human beings who would never harm a soul.
mhm, mhm,
And we hear about the rotten ones because I consume way too much news. I really do.
mhm,
And so we hear about the bad acts and we hear about the rapes and the murders and the things like that. I mean, if you watch the evening news, the first 15 minutes is all the murders that occurred in your city.
mhm.
But they don't focus on all the great things that are happening in your city. And
Right, right.
so there's a skewed perspective of what's happened. Of course, the news has gotten darker and social media's gotten darker. They have an algorithm that leads you down a darker and darker path
Mm,
because it makes you consume more. So like on Facebook, the algorithm is, and any of them, the algorithm is, you start, if you like a political statement, someone making fun of Donald Trump or something like that, it'll start feeding you more and more things to get you outraged, because the more outraged you feel, the more likely you are to click
Oh,
and
yes.
respond and interact and stay on the line. They want you there.
Yes, yes,
They don't want
yes.
you looking at happy kittens and only staying 15
Right,
minutes. They want you to be angry and
right.
stay for an hour.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. And I think that ties into this whole thing. When you're in your house and your Google says, "Oh, I didn't get that," right?
Mhm.
You were talking about something, my husband and I were having a conversation, and Google pops in and says, "Oh, I didn't get that." And I said, "That's because we weren't talking to you, Google," right? We weren't talking to you,
That conversation.
but they're monitoring or something, the conversation, or at least listening in so they'll know now what comes up. And another thing I notice is when you do Google searches,
Mhm.
now I
Oh,
know
yeah.
fingers on the bottom of your screen. I didn't notice that until the other day. The last things that I searched, for example, are
Mhm.
still there in case I want to go back. So
Yeah.
now they're holding it in the queue. But then in
Mhm.
addition to that, they're now finding other stuff that's close to that or similar to that for me to look at. And I was like, wow. So this whole AI thing is absolutely ridiculous.
It's pretty crazy. Of course, I'm an author, and so you're an author as well. So
Yes,
you know,
yes.
I mean, I've seen what AI can do, and maybe it'll get to the point where it can replace us. Who knows?
Mhm.
But I haven't seen an I've used a little bit of AI, Chat GPT,
Mhm,
to
mhm.
work on blogs and stuff like that. But I can't find anything, quite frankly, that doesn't sound plastic
Mm,
from
mm.
AI. It sounds too formal. It sounds
Well,
too.
yeah, too formal. Yeah. I even asked it one time because, of course, our college came up with the policy, a statement around it because they were afraid that students were
Oh,
going to put
cheating.
their
Yeah.
papers and use it, for when they have to write papers and things like that. But last time I checked, it wasn't giving any citations because if we have to do a research paper, you have to have citations, right? So it wasn't giving any citations. But now I noticed that it does. So this was last year, November, December 23. Actually, it was January when we came back for the second semester, right? And they had a statement. Somebody did a professional development thing around AI, and they said, "Well, we know our students are going to be using this." And I'm like, "Well, yeah, people are already using it, to a certain extent." But now they're saying they're going to be using it to write papers and things like that. So you say, create a paper, a research paper around da 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 da, and it's supposed to give you something. So the presenter was saying, "Oh, you could write a book, you can do this, you can do." I'm like, "Really?
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
amazing." And I'm saying, but most of the students are not writing books. What they're doing is research papers. So
Yeah.
what would give you the citation? At that time, it would not, but now I understand that it does.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that, actually, about how teachers are going to deal with,
Mhm.
I mean, because it would be so easy to do.
Yes, 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 yes. But you have to, I think that what has to happen is we need to figure out a way for students to embrace it because we know they're going to use it,
Mhm.
right? It's just like Google. Students will Google things and put it in as their work.
Yeah.
But we say you have to cite where you got it from. And so APA changed the guidelines and saying that it was retrieved from this website on this date, da 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 da. So then that means that whatever this is you're saying in this paper, this is where you got it from. And that's what citation is all about. Is you know that.
Yeah.
So it's just how you use it, I think, is the issue.
Hmm.
And
Oh,
that
that's fascinating.
it is very fascinating, and that's a whole nother podcast, right? But it is very fascinating that there's always these things that we have to stay aware of. And then what about those games? How do you think that contributes to this victimization that people and children are feeling? These
The
video games.
online gaming, kids get addicted to these games, and I'm not criticizing the games in any way. Where the danger lies is when they're doing multiplayer games and they're communicating online with people. They don't know how old they are. They may think it's another 13-year-old boy, and it could be a 50-year-old dude sitting in his underwear eating Cheetos on his
Mm,
laptop in his living room.
mhm.
They really don't know unless they can actually see the person who they're talking to.
And
And
most
they're
of the
being
time,
groomed online for that.
is it most of the time do they not show their face or do they? I don't know a lot about games, but I have grandkids who love these games. I do know that much.
Yeah,
And
most of the time they're not seeing the faces, they're seeing the characters they're playing. They only
Mm-hmm.
know them by their character names or their character personas.
And that's like a whole nother life. It's like an underground life, right?
So I become a brand ambassador for Bark. I don't know if you've heard of Bark, BARK. It
Mm-mm.
has it's the world's leading parental monitoring app company. And they
Mm.
have an app that will monitor the online gaming, the cell phone, the over 30 social media sites. And it doesn't, parents don't have to spy on their kids and go through their phone every single night because kids deserve some privacy too. But what Bark does is it monitors the conversations looking for inappropriate or dangerous
Huh.
content. And when it finds something, it flags it and tells the parent, sends a message to the parent of your child is sending a nude selfie or your child is talking to a stranger or whatever, so the
Hmm.
parents can take action.
Okay, now my daughter-in-law probably knows about that because she used to do that. I know she did that with her kids when they got cell phones. She would monitor it and all that. Yeah. Okay,
And,
yeah,
and
that.
Bark has a cell phone. I think this is a really great idea. They have a mobile phone now, a Samsung phone that looks like a regular, latest version Samsung phone that has every feature, but you can dumb it down and turn it into a brick that only calls 911 or you, and then
Mm,
give your child privileges according to their behavior. So if
mm,
they show they can be responsible with a cell phone when they're younger, then you let them have the camera, let them use the camera. But if you give them all these features and then they misuse them, you can take those features back and they'll still have the phone so you can contact them, but they
mm.
can't go online, for example.
Oh, that's interesting. That is
Mhm.
very interesting. You have led a very interesting life, I must say. I
Thanks.
was looking at this thing about the U.S. Marine photojournalist.
Yes.
I was like, wow, name one of the happy 100 people on the planet.
Mhm.
I was impressed with that. And then I love that you were working in the North Carolina Attorney General's office. That within itself. And then this thing about the forest fighter. I was like, forest fighter? What?
Yeah, when I was 18, I went to live in a Forest Service camp,
Uh-huh.
and I was one of 8 women with 80 guys. I never lacked for a date, let me tell you that.
I bet.
And I worked, we worked out and we planted trees and cut down trees and put out fires. And so
Wow.
it's interesting because I left the Forest Service to go into the Marine Corps. And I
Uh-huh.
was so buff when I worked for the Forest Service that when I got in the Marine Corps, I was in the first platoon of women that had any combat training. This is in 1981. First
Mm.
platoon to have any combat training. Well, it was a week of combat training, but they didn't give us an extra week to do it in. So they took the time out of our physical training. So we didn't have anywhere near as much physical training as they usually do. So I was in worse shape when I got out of Marine Corps boot camp than when I went in, which is probably the only person in the whole world that can say that.
Yeah, because they're supposed to be pretty tough. I understand. One of my
Yes.
sons went to the Marines. Yes.
And I
Wow.
understand that your husband was in the Navy.
Navy, yes.
Was he career Navy?
Yes. So that's how we actually ended up in this area is because of the Navy.
Hmm. So you understand, my dad was a career Marine, so I've been a dependent, and then I married a Marine. So, and then I
Mm.
was in the Marine Corps. So I've seen all angles of it. And it's not easy to be a military wife.
No, it's very tough. Very,
Yeah.
very tough. Very, very tough. Yeah.
Moving all the time and hanging onto a job when you're moving.
Right.
And they see
Yeah.
that your
Yeah.
husband's in the military and they don't want to give you a job because you're going to leave in
Right.
2 years.
Exactly. And then being Navy was even tougher because the husbands are gone most of the time.
Yeah.
And you have to be the single parent for a
How
while.
many children did you have?
We have three. Hmm.
3.
Hmm.
Wow.
Hmm. And we have 7 grandkids now.
Love it. And the 22-year-old, how close are you to being a great grandma?
Not close.
Good.
Not ready for that
Being a
yet.
grandma cooler than being a parent. I love my boys. I love my 2 sons, but I got to tell you, there's something about being a grandparent that is.
Oh, yeah.
I would have skipped over the parenting part just to get to the grandparent parts.
Right.
It's because when we have our own kids, they're a reflection of us. We want
Mhm.
them to not embarrass us. We want to look like a good parent, and we're so busy doing the homework, getting them ready for school, making them brush their teeth, reading them a story at night, putting up with the tantrums, that and they're not there. We see them again as a reflection of us. But with grandkids, we see them as their own unique little people, and we're being with them.
Yes,
We are
yes,
present with them.
yes. And we have the time to be present. See, when you're a
Yes.
parent and you're doing all these things and they have all these things that they're doing and we juggling all this, it's tough to be with them and to really, really appreciate and that time that you have with them because you're going to PTA, you're going to basketball, you're going to football, you're going to karate, you're going to dance, you're going to this, you're cheerleading, all that stuff, and so it's just so much. And then of course you got to prepare meals. And for me, I was in school. So you got to do all of those things. And then you got to try to
Yes.
take care of yourself and work. So it's really
And guess what goes out the window first? Taking care of yourself.
taking care of yourself. Yep.
I watched my daughter-in-law. She is an amazing mother, and she is such a trooper, and she just does it all. She's a full-time attorney, and
Mm.
she's raised my son. My son helps, but he was a product of the 80s, and he doesn't help around the house as much as he should.
And think
Very
he
active dad, very active dad.
probably thinks he doesn't have to do that part. I
Oh,
don't know
for
what
him,
that is about.
the dish fairy comes,
Right.
and cleans and does the dishes at the end of the day. We wakes up in the morning and the house is clean again. And so the fairy comes. That's how he was
Right,
raised.
right. That's the same. I think that's the same guy that my husband knows, the fairy guy. And I'm like, no, he doesn't live here. If he is,
My
he's too
daughter-in-law,
crazy to do anything.
my daughter-in-law kind of got on me once about the fact that I hadn't raised my son to be more helpful around the house. But I have two granddaughters and a grandson. My grandson won't. He doesn't want to be in the kitchen helping cook. He doesn't want to clean. He doesn't want to do any of that stuff. So she's got her own situation where the girls are pitching in to help and he's not. So it's just not that easy.
Right. And I don't know if I think it's a mindset. And I used to think it was older, it was the men from back in the day. And like you say, born in the 80s or before or whatever, and they don't. But I think it's just a male thing. It's turning out to be, based on what I see, it's just a male thing that they don't think they have to do those things. Even though I had my children, my boys, I have two boys, one girl, and my boys were the oldest ones. And so I always tell them, you got to be able to cook for yourself. You got to be able to clean. You got to be able to do your own laundry and all those things. So when you go off to college, you're going to have to do all these things. Nobody's going to be there. I'm not going to be there with you. You're going to have to do these things. So I taught them how to do those things, right? So now one son is single, so he has to do all of that, right? The other one is married. The oldest one is married, but he does the sort of thing like helping in the house and doing those things, and then he cuts the grass and all those things. So he doesn't mind doing the indoors or
Good.
outdoor things.
Mm-hmm.
My husband, my daughter's husband, on the other hand, doesn't understand that part. So I think it was just how he was raised. So it's amazing though that he doesn't see that, okay, she works, she has a 2-year-old, she comes home and she cooks. I work, she works. But then she was away from here for the last 3 days. She said she went back home and she said there were dishes in the sink. Granted, there's a dishwasher. There was, she's like, the kitchen was messed, the refrigerator was empty. She's like, what is going on? And I said, well, sometimes you have to tell people exactly what you want them to do.
Yeah.
She said, but I
Male
do that.
pattern. I call it male pattern blindness.
Right. That
Where
bothers
it's like when you tell a guy, he says, where is such and where's the ketchup? It's on the third shelf down. It's not there. It's not there. It's not there. And then you walk in, of course, you just pick it right off the third shelf. And the same thing goes with the household stuff. They'll walk over the laundry basket. See? And it's like it doesn't enter their minds. I'm so glad you raised your sons to be capable of doing those things.
It's so important because nobody wants to take care of a grown man. And I told my husband when the kids went off to college and everything, I said, okay, kid, you're on your own now. He said, what do you mean? I was like, you got to do your own cooking, your own cleaning, your laundry. You got to do all this stuff. I'm not doing that. You're not my child. I did that for my children.
Mm-hmm.
First, he didn't get it. For a long time, he didn't get it. He finally got it. He's like, are you so? Yeah, I'm serious. I did that because they were my children,
Mm-hmm.
I had them, I brought them here. So guess what? I'm responsible. But guess what? You are not my child. I'm not responsible for you at all.
You into early childhood education?
What'd you say?
What got you into early childhood education?
So I actually, when I first had my children, I realized with my oldest son that I didn't know a lot about children. I always loved children. I love my friends' kids. I had my children late in life. I didn't have them early, like 20, 21, any of that. And so And so I always liked to hang around children. I love children because I always found them fascinating. So when I first, my first career choice was, I thought, you know what, maybe I'll be a child psychologist or something because I enjoyed children. I found them fascinating. And then I started working for the Cooperative Extension Service. You
Remember
familiar
that?
with?
Yeah.
And I worked in the Department of the Family and Consumer Sciences, and I really enjoyed children. So once I did that, and I went back to school, I decided to go under child development. That was in the home economics department. So, back in the day, I don't know what department is in now, but, at universities. But, and so that's what I ended up doing because I always liked children, I always found them fascinating. And like I said, I wanted to know more about what makes a child tick, kind of thing. And so that's what I did. And I really loved it. My second love is fashion. And I said, now my ideal job is to put those two together. I don't know how, I haven't done that yet, but anyway. But my students always say, well, you're the most fashionable professor I've ever had. I'm like, yeah, I guess I finally figured out how to put it together.
What's your favorite age group with your grandkids?
Oh God, I love the preschool. I love the preschoolers. So when they're young, because I like to see what they're going to come up with. What is it their brain going to tell them,
They'll tell the truth, boy.
Yes, and I
They'll say
love
it like it
to
is.
say it just what it is. I love to ask these open-ended questions to see what they're going to say.
Mhm.
I do a lot of that. And that's my early childhood stuff. And my daughter says, Mommy, you're really interesting. Because I always say to her, I say, okay, so now make sure that you ask him questions. Make sure you do this. Make sure you ask him open-ended questions, not a yes or no. Questions where he has to think about stuff, that sort of thing. Now this little boy is talking in complete sentences. And I
At
mean,
2, wow.
yes, yes. And he figures things out. And
Mhm.
I think because you're talking to him all the time and you're engaging him in conversation and there's a back and forth exchange. And that's what I try to get my students to understand. If we
Mhm.
want children to have really good cognitive skills and language development, we have to talk to them. And
Yeah, and
today,
read to them. Read to them. I'm surprised by the number of parents who don't read to their. My grandkids have had literally at least 2 books read to them every single night of their lives, so thousands of books.
yes.
And and they get sung to every night by each parent. And when I'm there a couple times a week, I sing to them as well, so they get at least 3 songs a night.
Mm-hmm.
And one
Mm-hmm.
day, I really dread that we're terrible singers. We cannot sing in my family. One day, they're going to realize we really suck at singing, and they're going to not going to want us to sing to them anymore, and it'll just break my heart. But they still love it.
Right.
But my grandson, what a pill he is. He decided at 3 that he wanted a different song every night. So sing me something you never sung before, Grandma.
Oh, really?
Well, that was cute for about the first 2 or 3 times, but then you're really racking your brain to remember the
Trying to
lyrics of
figure out
these
what
songs.
to sing,
I
right?
come up with something, yeah. I haven't sung before, and he still does that. He's 9 years old now, and he still says every time, "Sing me something you never sung before, Grandma." So I'm like searching on my phone for lyrics of Loggins and Messina, and my son, when he sings to them, he has the worst voice on the planet, but he belts it out like his heart, Celine Dion. He is singing at the top of his lungs, and
And not
he's absolutely terrible, and the kids adore him,
yes,
adore it.
yes, yes. And the book reading and all of that. You're right. That is so critical for their language development as well as their cognitive. And you'd be surprised at because when a child learns how to read, they learn based on the things that they've heard before. So the books that they've been read to, the conversations that they've had, they can figure things out based on that background knowledge that they have. And so
Yes.
background knowledge is so important. And today's parents, a lot of them are on their phone so much they forget
Yeah.
what that is. And that's another thing I try to convey to my daughters. Make sure that you spend this time. Don't be on your phone. Like when I'm riding somewhere, I see parents at the bus stop or something, and they're on their phone, and the kids just sitting there in the stroller all by themselves, not being. Now I'm hoping that that's just a one-time incident. It's not always. I try to give people benefit of the doubt, but
Uh, in my books, in each one of my books, toward the end, I talk about the importance of daily sharing and monthly family meetings. And the
mm,
daily sharing is where you put I'm going to say your damn phone down for 15 minutes and give your undivided attention to your kid and have an actual conversation asking open-ended questions.
yes,
If you say, "How was your day?" they're going to go, "Fine."
fine.
day
What do you
wasn't
do
fine.
about
Their day was filled with failures and laughter and
yeah.
bullies and all kinds of crazy stuff that they would love to tell you about. But if they see you thumbing through your phone when you're asking how was your day, hon, they're not going to say anything.
They're like, he's not really, or she's not interested. Right.
No.
Exactly.
And that time is so precious because, God, I see my grandkids, they're almost 10, they're almost double digit midgets now. I'm thinking, we only have so much time with them.
Yes.
And the monthly family meetings are important to get the families all on the same page, teach the children about responsibility because you take turns being the leader and the secretary and stuff like that. And it's
Mm.
also an opportunity to teach them some
Oh,
of
I
these
love
safety
that.
lessons I recommend.
I love that. I love that. I love that family monthly meetings where
Yeah,
you're
you
all.
you you have the meeting and then you have pizza afterward or play games or do make it a family game night and
Mhm.
something the kids will all look forward to.
Yes, yes, yes. Now my husband, we did this until last year. We used to take them all on. We'd call it a grand trip. So our grand vacation every year, we took all the grandkids, just the two of us and all the grandkids, and then we took the 2-year-old the last time we went. This past year we did. Was it this year? I think it was this year, 23 rather, where we didn't go because my daughter got married, and so we had to spend all that money that we would have used on them. We had to
Oh
spend all that
boy.
money anyway. So, but I tell you, it is a beautiful thing because it's just us and them. They get to hang out, we get to hang out with them, we get to, no parents allowed, that sort of thing. We had such a good time with them
She go.
every year. We go a different place every year. So one time we went to the beach at Rehoboth Beach in Delaware.
Mhm.
One time we went to Myrtle Beach because they love the beaches, of course. So we went there. One time we went to amusement park because Myrtle Beach had the amusement park and it had the beach. So, we get them to decide on it and as a group and those kinds of things so that they have some input into it. Right.
Steal that idea.
Yeah, we love that. That was such a good time for us and for them to, for all of us to connect, for them to connect with the cousins, and appreciate each other and all that. And most of them are boys. There's 2 girls and the rest are boys. So 5 boys.
Oh.
Yeah.
Now, I did not grow up around grandparents, so I didn't really have a grandparent role model. One of the
Mm.
other reasons why I like to call myself a badass grandma is that I am an exceptional grandma. I am a really good grandma. What what did you have a really close relationship with your grandparents, and is that what kind of gave you
That idea,
the
whatever.
idea? Yeah.
My grandma, I told you my grandma, she had the place at Atlantic Beach in South Carolina, and we would
Mhm.
go down there every year, like 6th, 7th, 8th grade to work. But we went to work. We
Mhm.
didn't go to have fun,
What kind of
right?
work?
Well, she had this bed and breakfast place, so we worked in that
Oh,
place.
in the B&B. Mhm.
Yeah, so that's what we did. We worked, and she told us, she said, "Okay, if you guys come down here and work with me, I will buy your school clothes." Well, I've always been a fashionista, so of course, anytime you say you're gonna buy me some clothes, I'm there, right? So that's why I went to get the money. Guess what? She did not pay us. So we had to actually work another job with the person who was either these food trucks, they call them food trucks now, but these little canteens where they sold cotton candy and candy apples and all that stuff and
Fair, yeah.
spoons and all that. Yeah. So that's what we did. And so, yeah, but so what I got from my grandma, not so much fun and hanging out like we do without, but what I got was my work ethic you know
Mm.
because of her, I'm able to manage more than one thing at a time, right, and could do more than one job. So like I said, I went to school, worked, and raised the kids all at one time. So if it were not for her and teaching me those how to do all of that, or I don't know that she taught me, but presenting that opportunity to me, then I don't think I would be able to do that because I'd probably be like tunnel vision on one thing and not so many other things. So that is one thing that I can say I got from her. My grandpa, I did not know. I knew my great grandma and great grandpa. No, actually, my great great, because my grandma's mom
Right.
died when she was very young.
Mhm.
So it was her grandparents that I knew very well, Viola and Alec. I loved them. We would go to their house. These are the kind of grandparents you would sit at their feet while they were on the front porch. That's what I remember. They had these apple trees and great vineyards and all this kind of things. And so we could go in there, get the fruit that we wanted and pecan trees and all that. I loved their house. I loved to go to their house when I was a little girl.
Were they in Lumberton?
Yes, they were in Lumberton. Yep,
Mhm.
yep, yep. And so they were, and then my grandpa had a store, and my grandma, like I said, she would cook. She's that type of grandma, like the grandmas, of the past, where they would cook and all the kids would hang around with them, and
Oh,
she would
yeah.
stuff that you didn't need, your parents didn't want you to have, but they would give them anyway. Yes, that kind of grandma.
My husband, he has his grandmother was, oh, I loved her so much. Granny, they used to call her. And when he was a kid, he remembers she made the best sausage patties and
Mm.
pancakes. And one time she told him he asked if he could have more sausage, and he kept eating it. And his grandfather said he's going to get sick, and his grandmother said, "Well, he'll learn then, won't he?" And he ate so many sausages he threw up all day. She's like, "That'll teach you." That was back in the day, you pulled the TV on
Yes,
top of it. That'll teach you.
yeah, 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 yeah. But now, yeah, that was funny. But those memories were really good memories, especially my grand. These were my so that was my mom's grandparents. Yeah, they great grand. They were actually her great grandparents. Yeah, because her mom, like I said, my mom's grandma, she passed when they were very young. So I never knew her. But then on my father's side, his actually it wasn't his parents either. It was his grandparents. I knew them, and we would go to their house and stay. My brother and I, because we were the two oldest, and so we would go and stay with them sometime. And they lived on a farm, and my cousins were there. My big cousins were there, and I loved my cousin, the girl. She was very pretty, and so I always wanted to be like her when I grew up. And recently she called me. We hadn't talked in years, and so she called me out of the blue. And when she called me, I was screaming on the phone. I'm like, "Oh my God, my favorite cousin!" She was like, "You are still crazy." I said, "Oh my God." I said, "I just love you so much." Because as a kid, those people that are special to you, when you reconnect with them, it's like you lose your mind or something. She said, "I can't believe that you're still holding on to that." I'm like, "Yeah, you were my favorite cousin." Because as a kid, you always want to be like the adults or the big cousins or wherever. Yeah,
Mhm.
but yeah. And so, yeah, we used to love to go out there. We would go out there mainly in the summertime, right? And hang out with them and that sort of thing, because they live a little bit further away. They were still in Lumberton, but a little further away than where my grandpa was. Because my grandpa's house was here. My grandma's house was right next to that. And then our house was right next to that. So
Wow.
that's how we grew up right in the same little neighborhood in the community.
Mhm.
And so I remember all those people that used to keep me when I was a kid, because my parents were teenagers when they had me. So of course, everybody in the community loved me because I was community baby kind of thing. And when I see them now, when I go home, and I said, "Oh yeah, that's my girl." I said, "Because she used to take care of me when I was a little girl." I told my grandson that. I said, "And this is Miss Linda. She's my cousin. She used to take care of me when Grandma was a little girl." He looked at me as if to say, "Grandma, you were a little girl." But I still remember those people, and I said I love them because they all took care of me when I was a little girl.
Really
So
was the village really did raise us
yes,
when we were kids.
yes,
If you were misbehaving at a friend's house, they would just
yes,
handle their
yes,
business. And
yes, and it's not like that anymore. But those, I have to say, that was the good part of being raised in that time. You didn't have to worry about those kinds of things. You
I
really
was
did.
so pleased the first time one of my grandchildren did something they shouldn't be doing, and I said, stop that now. And they said, asked Daddy, can I do it? He says, your grandmother just told you no, and he
Hmm.
backed me up. And I thought, okay, we're going to be able to get along just fine here because Grandma
Yeah.
has a say. Grandma has a
Yes,
say.
yes, and you don't know these days if you
Yeah.
do. You really don't. So it is because the times are different. How people are raising their children, these millennial kids, I call them, and the way they're raising their children. Like my daughter and her friends, they all hang out together. They all when they like somebody has a birthday party, the kids are in one room and they have a monitor so they can see what the kids are doing, and then
Yeah.
they're in another room, and that's how they enjoy themselves. So they're at the same time they can keep an eye on their children, but they can also enjoy themselves. And I call that the millennial parenting.
Yeah. My grandtwins had a birthday last week. 33 kids came to their birthday party at the trampoline park, which is just I never had a birthday party where I had like four friends show
Right.
up. So many presents. Oh my God. It looked
Wow.
like Christmas had thrown up all over the house by the time they opened all the presents.
Wow.
Pretty
Wow.
good kids. We did not have stuff like that when we were kids. Yeah, we only had family birthday parties. We didn't have
Yeah,
friend
we had
birthday
these parties
parties.
at the house. They were not
Yeah,
at the trampoline park or the what is it? The what's that other one? The Chuck E. Cheese and
Chuck
all
E.
those.
Cheese. Yeah,
Yeah,
we
yeah.
made
No,
we made fun where we were.
yes, yes, yes. And most time it was just outside, right?
Yeah,
It was just outside.
that's probably my biggest memory of being a kid is being kicked outside.
Go outside and play.
I wanted to hear what the adults were talking about. I wanted to sit in on
Right,
that, but no.
right, right. And now that part of my life, I think I wish that would have gone a little differently,
Mhm.
right? Because I think children miss out on some things that there are some things that they do need to hear, like
Mhm.
all about the self-confidence and making sure if you're in the company of people who might not be so good, how to handle that and all those kinds of things, right? Instead of telling us to go outside and play. And even the financial literacy thing as well,
Gosh,
understand
yes.
money and how to spend it and how to save it
Not
and all.
believe that is not a required high school course. I
Right.
cannot
Even
believe
today,
that.
still not. It's still not. But in our time, no, you didn't even talk about that. We
Mm-mm.
were what, dissecting frogs and stuff like that
Yeah.
instead of learning how to spend money and save money and make money your friend instead of just thinking that it was this thing that you could go out in the backyard and pick off of a tree, right? You have to actually earn it, right? So again, those things are so different now, I guess. And so, but still, we're not teaching that class in school.
It just flummoxes me. I don't
But
get
there
it.
are some people, I actually know a grandma that I want to have on my show who teaches financial literacy to young children,
Oh, wow.
elementary age children. And she's
I
been
told
very,
my granddaughter got 50 or $60 in her cards from her friends last week. And her mother said, we need to put that in the bank account. And she said, why? And I said, because the bank will pay you to let them keep your money for you. She's like,
uh-huh.
they will? And I was like, yes, they will. She's all about the bank now.
Yes, 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 right. It's how you explain it to them. Yes, exactly right. But it's interesting. There's some interesting times, and as grandmas, there's so many things that I know for me, I want them to know that I didn't know or that I didn't teach my children, my own children, that I want them to know to be in order to be able to survive here, in
Yeah,
this
I'm
world.
going to send you my heroic parenting book, and that's the one for parents of kids 0 to 9.
Okay.
And I'm going to send for your granddaughter. I'm going to send the Badass Girls Guide because she's about old
Oh,
enough to be able to
yeah.
read that.
Yeah, that would be wonderful.
Let me make
Thank
sure I write your address down because you put that in the chat, and I want
you.
to help with that.
So now you say you're going to a wedding?
Yes, I have a dear friend who's getting married today. She's older and it's her second marriage, and I'm just so excited for her. She deserves every happiness. I haven't been to a wedding in, gosh,
Wow, I
15
love
years.
weddings because there's food, there's fun, there's
Yes,
dancing. Yeah, yes, all of those things. Yes, that's
mhm,
yeah, that's wonderful, and you look fabulous. So,
very
how far
much.
to go for it?
About 45 minutes. It's going to be at Duke Chapel.
Oh, okay. Oh, now
Yeah,
you
so
know
it should be
what I
pretty.
love? Duke Gardens.
Yes.
I love Duke Gardens. Oh my God. I always said when I was at Central, I always said, I want to get married here one day. I love that place. It was so beautiful. I haven't been in a very long time, but yeah, I used to love, love, love that place.
And the,
And
the reception will be at the Washington Duke Inn. I don't know if you've
mm,
been there or not, but that's a really nice place.
is that on the campus too?
Yeah, I think it is.
Okay, 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 okay. All right. Well, I'm not going to hold you anymore. I'm going to let you get out of here. I've enjoyed talking to you. I'm sending you this text right now as we speak.
I would love to I would love to get online and talk to your class and answer
Excellent.
their questions. That would be so much fun. I've done that before.
Okay.
And I will get those books in the mail to you next week.
Okay.
And I
Thank
have
you.
really enjoyed this conversation. You are so easy to talk with.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I enjoyed it as well. And I hope that we can, I just sent you the text, that we can figure out some other things to do because I'm doing some work with grandmas who are raising their grandkids
There's
and
like
they,
2.4 million grandparents raising their grandkids.
that is crazy.
Yes.
They need to know what you're talking about here. And so we need to figure out how we can do that. So in November, I think I start this in November, I usually do fundraising activity for them to kind of give money for Christmas, right?
Mhm.
And then I bring on different guests to talk about different things that will
Mhm.
benefit them. So maybe that would be the time. I'm still trying to toss it around and see what's going to be the best situation. But you and I can talk and kind of figure that out.
That
Okay?
sounds great. Thank you
Sure.
so much.
I
I
enjoyed
really enjoyed myself.
getting to know you, CJ, with your badass self. Yeah.
I look forward to talking again soon.
Take care now. Bye
Thank
bye.
you. Bye-bye.
Introducing a remarkable book, a tapestry of stories from atypical grandmas whose lives are a treasure trove of wisdom and inspiration. Stories of inspiration, life lessons, and wisdom from grandmas by Dr. Marsha McLean. This extraordinary book is now available on www.grandmas2.0.com and on Amazon.